Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us today, Sunday, end of summer. Summer is over. Um, Welcome to Becerra de Meneses, an association, Spiritist Association that is a nonprofit. We function strictly on donations and volunteers, and our mission is to study and promote the practice of spiritual and material charity and study Spiritism. Our website is www.spiritist.com. Our email is info@spiritist.com, and our phone number is 305-477-4148. As you all know, we are going live on YouTube. Please silence your phones, and we appreciate that you keep silence. Today we will be reading chapter 10 from the book Our Daily Bread, that was written by Francisco Candido Javier and dictated by the Spirit of Emmanuel. Chapter 10 is going to be talking about fraternal sentiments. Now about brotherly love, we do not need to write to you. Yourselves have been taught by God to love each other. This was said by Paul on Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 9. That's a strange word. A strong contradiction which disorganizes human contribution towards the building of Christianity is a sectarian tendency that annoys a great number of its followers. If there were more reflection and more attentiveness to the teachings of Jesus, then those unjustifiable battles would be diffused forever. Even today, due to the manifestation from the spiritual plane towards the renovation of the world, individuals and groups of people appear to seek formulas from the beyond, which would enable them to enter the realms of pure fraternity. What are the enlightened companions waiting for in order to effect true brotherhood? Many people overlook the fact that legitimate solidarity is scarce in places where there is little spiritual service and where there is an excess of preoccupation with criticism. Many well-known organizations are drawn into disturbances and dissolutions because of a lack of mutual help in the areas of comprehension, work, and goodwill. Is there a lack of assistance from above? No. Every honest and generous project resounds in the higher spheres, luring cooperative, self-sacrificing workers to its aid. When there is an invasion of this harmony in an organization of goodwill, the individuals involved should blame themselves for not fulfilling their commitments or their indifference in giving assistance and service. Let no one ask heaven for recipes of fraternity, because the sacred and immutable formula is already known to us through the words, love each other. For reflection about today's reading, in today's reading, Emmanuel reminds us that the sectarian differences that disorganize humans towards the building of Christianity would be diffused forever if humanity would pay more attention to the teachings of Jesus. He explains to us how individuals and groups seek formulas from beyond, overlooking the fact many well-known organizations experience disturbances and dissolutions because of lack of mutual help in the areas of comprehension and goodwill. Are we blaming others, or are we following the immutable formula given to us by Paul through the words, love each other? And to begin today's gospel, please help me out here with a prayer. Let's leave behind all the issues that we had during the week, all the problems. Let's elevate our thoughts to the Master. Dear God, thank you once again for the opportunity to be here today on this beautiful September Sunday. Thank you for this spiritual doctrine, for this Center Becerra de Meneses, for all the spirits you sent to assist us. Thank you, dear Lord, for planting the seed in our hearts that was mentioned in the chapter that we just read that says, love each other. We pray to you so that goodwill and love be always in our hearts. We ask you, dear Lord, to share your light upon those that suffer, those that are in pain, those that feel abandoned and hungry. May your mercy fill their hearts with the love only you can provide. We also ask you that you bless those present here today, incarnated and disincarnated, those that could not make it in, and those watching us at home. Thank you, Lord. And to begin today's gospel, we ask you to enlighten our brother Carlos Baruki so that he can be instrument of your love. Allow us the wisdom to hear and listen to his words so that we can learn from them. We ask this in the name of your son Jesus. So be it. Thank you. Today, our brother Carlos will be talking about chapter 19, Faith Moves Mountains. Thank you.
Good morning. This is, to me, is one of the most difficult topic to talk about, because in our journey through different existence, that's the most difficult learning process to keep the relationship with God and express this relationship with faith, right? Even in this incarnation, that is something that I struggle with, that sometimes I'm not able to keep the continuous or very robust relationship. Sometimes we get detached, sometimes we get close, and this is one of the challenges of the human being. In the gospel, there is a whole chapter, which is the chapter 19, dedicated to faith. Even though we are going to be seeing faith being treated in the gospel 11 times before the chapter. So faith is touched several times, but it comes to a point that a whole chapter is dedicated to it, right? So those who have the gospel in Portuguese, there is a table of content which cross-reference. So before reading it, or if you have already read it, go back and see the times that faith has been touched and talked about, for you to see that this was the preparation to read this chapter, okay? And you're gonna see that in my presentation, in our conversation today, I have alternate some slides with pictures. And this is purposeful. It's just a didactic mechanism that I'm using to remind me and yourselves of something that's going to be helping us to understand faith. Okay? Now, in this chapter, we have two biblical passages. They are not placed together, one after the other, but I'm going to be using as a starting point the two passages together. One is a parable, right? So after reading these two passages, we're going to be making some comment of the language used in the Bible. Okay. Why am I going to do this before delving into the theme of faith? Because these two passages that were selected by Kardec, when you first read it, the first reaction is say, I cannot believe that Jesus Christ said that, right? Because the sentence that will appear there, apparently and without context, may shock a little bit, okay? And this was in purpose as well, because that's a moment that you have to stop and reflect, okay? So let's see if I remember how to move this. Yes. So this is, we're going to be covering, it's chapter 19. And we're going to be learning where we say that faith moves mountains. Where does this sentence come from? The first part is a text. I'm going to be reading very slowly. What is in yellow is Jesus Christ's words. Okay? When he came to meet the people, a man approached him, fell to his knees at his feet, and said to him, Lord, have mercy on my son, who is insane and suffers much, because he often falls into the fire and often into the water. I presented him to your disciples, but they could not heal him. Jesus answered, saying, O disbelieving and perverse generation, how long I will be with you? How long must I endure you? Bring the child to me. And when Jesus threatens the demon, it came out of the child, who was healed the same instant. Then the disciples come to Jesus in private and said to him, why could he not expel the demon? Jesus answered, because of your disbelief. For verily I say to you, if you had faith as a mustard seed, you would say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it would move, and nothing would be impossible for you. I'm going to go to the second passage, then we come back and start analyzing. Okay. Second passage. When they left Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree some way off, he went to see if he could find something on it. And having come to it, he only found leaves, because it was not the season for figs. Then Jesus said to the fig tree, may no one eat any more fruit from you, which his disciples heard. On the following day, as they passed by the fig tree, they saw that it had become withered down to its root. So it was dried. And remembering Jesus' words, Peter said to him, Master, look how the fig tree that you cursed has become withered. Jesus answered him, saying, have faith in God. Verily, I say to you that whoever says to that mountain, be uprooted and cast yourself into the sea, without any doubt in his heart, but firmly believing that what he has said will happen, will see it actually happens. Right? So in the first passage, we have Jesus saying, how long am I going to be here to endure you, to put up with you, to tolerate you? Right? All this believing in perverse community or generation, which apparently sounds like rude language. Apparently sounds like tough language, right? And polite language. And here we have also Jesus looking at the tree that has no fig, because there was no season for the fig, and say, may no one eat more fruit from you. And Peter interpreted him that he had cursed the tree. And as a consequence, the tree was withered down, dried, right? So apparently something that is difficult for us to understand when you read for the first time, because we always say that Jesus is meek, is mild, is humble, is soft. And these are strong statements, right? So let's contextualize it to understand it. And then we're going to be talking about faith and why he has used these two resources to position how faith should be managed. Okay. Now, first thing that we have to know is language in the Bible. Remember that everything was oral tradition. And because it was oral tradition, it was verbal. Nobody was recording. Nobody was filming, right? So if I pass on what I heard, chances are there will be some distortions. It's not something new to us, right? And you have to think also in message going through history, because if I'm today and I say something to you and you pass on today to somebody, or even in this very same life, is one thing. Possibility of adaptation, changes, accommodations, historically speaking, is going to be greater, right? Now, the other thing is, if we pay attention to language, language evolves. Meaning of the words changing through time. It may change to become more refined, or it may change to become ruder, tougher, and coarser. All right? Sometimes a slang, which was not uttered or pronounced in the 60s, the 70s, and perhaps my grandmother is speaking this word now, or the other way around, right? A word that used to be very, very sophisticated, very erudite, nowadays very vulgar. So language by itself evolves, independent on verbal or non-verbal tradition, etc. The other thing is, we know that in the Bible, we have lots of figurative language. And when you say figurative language, we are talking about metaphors, symbols, allegories, right? Archetypes, parables. So we cannot interpret literally. And this is a resource that is used in poesy, in poetry as well, because the more figurative the language is, it is more connotation than denotation. And it brings more nuances, more feelings, more subjective aspects that can go through time. Okay? The other thing is, we talked about this, remember that it was spoken in different languages. It was not filmed and recorded in one language, into different cultures. So there is also the cultural and linguistic aspect of distortions. It's not in the very same language in just one country throughout timeline. The other thing I'd like you to think is, it was copied and transcribed. And it has been transcribed many times and copied many times by many people. And sometimes, depending on the level and culture of the person, this person is going to be adapting somehow. If I don't understand very much this word, right? For example, you're going to see here a word that's not very much common, is over there, histrionic. Histrionic is theatrical, staged. Perhaps staged more common than theatrical, and theatrical more common than histrionic. So there is sort of accommodation to styles, right? And we have different versions, because when you go to Bible and New Testament, there are different versions and different selection of words. Not only formality or informality, but also choice of words, right? And there are some adaptations depending on the religious denomination or some sects, or because there was a separation, right? So when you have like Catholics, Protestant, inside Protestant, we have Calvin, Lutheran, and then the Anglicans, and then we have the Mennonites, then we have all those stuff, right? So taking all these into account, we have foundations to say that we cannot interpret language literally on denotative sense. We have to see and understand with bigger eyes and bigger brain. So using eyes to see, but eyes of the soul, of the spirit, not the physical eyes, right? And in ears that can hear and listen broader and deeper than that. Okay? So to help us understand these the two passages, the first thing that I have to talk to is grapes and figs are recurrently used in the Bible. Very, very much used. There are lots of prophets that talk about them, and they symbolize many things. Okay. Figs and grapes appear in the sense of truth, spiritual renewal, essence, soul nourishment, to the point that even in Kardec's time, when he finished the gospel, the spirits that were dictating all the answers, the consoler, suggested him to use as a cover, like grape, right? You see grapevine there, okay? Because that's the example of truth. Now, if we come back to the passage, we are just before a fig tree, and this is something that you have to pay attention also. I'll go back here, sorry about that, but you have to see here, sorry, it's the second one. You have to see here that this is Mark, but there is something missing here. From 12 to 14, something, 20 to 30, to 23, right? So if you read the whole thing, using what is in between, it is passing by the fig tree on the way to Jerusalem, going to the temple, expelling, driving out of the temple as a purification move all those who were misusing the temple. You're using as appearance for commerce, for trade, and you have the elite of religions there as well, and coming back the tree. So what is in between? It is fig tree, temple purification, fig tree. So the fig tree is a frame of what's happening at this time. And this is the month of Easter. It's April. And there is no fig in April. There is no leaf on the trees in April, because figs, they are produced late May and June. Okay? Now, why I'm telling you this, because in these three passages, we have Jesus Christ fighting against appearance and reality, superficiality and essence. Because we know that all men will be judged by his own fruit. So if you're pretending that you are generating fruit out of season, if you're showing leaves, or if you're showing intellectuality, knowledge, memory, words in a very pompous way, but in essence you don't have your wither inside, the same way that he expelled the temple, he's talking to the tree. From you, nothing will come out, because that is not the real thing. Real thing is going to be in June, late May, June, right? Now, the most important thing here for us is just for you, and if you'd like to understand it better, there are many lectures in YouTube by Haroldo Dutra, and Haroldo is going to be, he dedicates 1 hour explaining the metaphor and the allegory used with the fig tree, right? And also he provides us with something that is very important. He shows us that at the time of the prophet, and he makes reference to Isaiah, which is Isaiah, right? Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Micaiah, which is Micaiah, right? Micaiah, in Agabus. So he makes reference to 4 prophets in which they use parables, and also they stage symbolically, like in a theater, a message. For example, in the case of Isaiah, he enters Jerusalem, he goes to the very center of the city because God told him, go there naked, barefoot, walk in circle, and then you dress yourself. And then when people were talking to him and say, what happened? Are you getting crazy? He was saying that your alliance between Egypt and Assyria and you is going to be taking you to a very humiliating position, and you're going to be deprived of everything. You're going to be losing Hebrew people everything. So that's why he's naked, right? In the case of Jeremiah, he received voice, direct voice from God saying, buy a ceramic vase, right? Break it in small pieces, go to the temple, walk upon it, and provoke a discussion. And there was a message there as well. So at that time, there was lots of histrionic, strong language for people to understand. Remember that people were not so much sophisticated and refined intellectually. It doesn't mean that they were worse or better than us, right? Nowadays, we have more refined language, but we may be very evil with refined language. But the way that they expressed was very coarse, very tough. And for the sake of maintaining rapport and getting the message across, Jesus Christ was using their language. Remember that we are in the time that people kill each other. If you steal, go ahead, right? So the equation was tough. It was not so much sophisticated. Is that okay? Now, the most important thing here is in the 2 passages, we have the word mountains, and that we can remove mountains. And mountains here is a metaphor. So with faith, we can remove any kind of mountains. What does mountain here stand for? Right? One of the words is obstacles. I'm just going backwards because, so we have any kind of difficulties, any kind of barriers, any kind of obstacles. And let's translate this in our lives. Any kind of resistance that we have, any ill will or any prejudice, any defect that we have, selfishness or too much material interest, for you to remove it, you have to go above what's the ordinary possibility of being seen in the world. So if you have faith, does it require a strong amount of faith? He just says, like a mustard grain. So with even the proportion, because in our evolutionary path, one of the most difficult things for us to eliminate is selfishness. We have seen from the spirits that the world is like this because of selfishness. Once we try and we succeed in decreasing selfishness, we're going to be entering regeneration indeed. So sometimes it may demand or request how many reincarnations for us to understand that we have to remove this pride. Because whenever you have selfishness, you have vanity and pride coming together, right? So this side of the vices, the same way that you're going to see in the gospel that the first virtue is faith, coming with hope and charity. This is the trinity of virtues, right? So everything starts with faith. So there is a starting point so that we can remove all of this, what's considered our mountains, our burden, okay? Now, one thing that we have to pay attention now is faith. If you think of the etymology, the origin of the word, right, that we receive from the Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, the closest to us is the Latin. It comes from fits. And this is the word that is related to fidelity, loyalty. Because of our religious education of many, many, many centuries, we associated and we still associate faith with only belief. But it's not only a matter of belief. Because we may say, do you believe that your son exists? It is tangible. It came out of you. I believe. Do you believe in God? Oh, sometimes or always. Okay, but it came out of you because you're a divine spirit as well. Your son came out of you because it's physically from your womb. But from your conscience, your essence, it is also coming out of you, right? So faith comes from fidelity. Fidelity only exists because there is relationship. We are not going to be developing, working, and building faith if we do not relate to. So the closer we relate to God, the greater is our faith. There is one fatality or one fate or one doom for our spirit because we were born simply ignorant and we're going to be going to relative perfection. So there is an ascending movement from shadow, from darkness to light, but it's an ascending movement. It may be straightforward or sort of sinuous, tortuous. Right? You may go directly to this. That's why Jesus Christ is our model, because they're the straight path, right? I'm the way, the truth, the light, life, right? Or you may with turns and twists because of your exercising goodwill inappropriately, you're getting far from or getting closer. But from the very beginning, faith was there in our conscience. It's a virtue. If it's a virtue, it is part of moral law. And the moral laws is part of the natural laws that are in our conscience. So you may get farther and come back. So either go straight or you go like this, right? Now, relationship. Relationship is something quite complicated, right? Because you have to relate with the other, right? And when I relate to the other, I'm going to have conflict. And there is a reason for that. And it's very interesting to see. Let's go to the reason for that. Our self-perception, generally we see I, me, mine, myself. When we are in the womb, right, we are mixed with our mother. When we were born was the first rupture. It breaks. And as a child, a baby, I would like to continue to see my mom as an extension of myself, but it's no longer an extension of myself. It's the other. In the very beginning, I cannot see her, but I can feel and smell her, right? Now, whenever you have the other, our tendency, because our self-perception in the very beginning is I, me, myself, is I'd like you to have the same opinion as I have, the same preference that I have, the same taste as I have, the same choice that I have. That's why we have some antagonism, some conflict. Could you imagine the relationship with God? It's the other, but the other absolute and perfect, and we are limited. So it's even harder. In other words, faith is not a piece of cake. It's not that easy. It's something that we have to go through. We have to live. We have to think. We have to feel, right? And God manifests through people and through circumstances. And sometimes we're going to be building faith, dealing with difficult people, difficult circumstances. And difficult people in difficult circumstances are the result of our wrong use of free will, right? So that's the other, and that's what I told you, right? This very first rationale was done by a philosopher, a Jewish philosopher called Emmanuel Levinas, and his book is God the Other. As a Hebrew, he was saying how difficult it is to deal with the other when the other is absolute and perfect, omniscient, knows it all, and whatever he, she, it does, it executes. There is nothing at random. And we ourselves, sometimes we feel at a loss what to do because we're limited and we don't know how to relate to this, right? This is part of our journey here, okay? Now, let's see some basic question about faith. So, Is faith innate to human beings? Okay. I told you that we were born because we are divine spirit. We get deviated and we get detached from because of our free will, right? Can it be worked, developed, increased? Yes, right? It is not only praying, because some people say that the more you pray, the more. Okay, praying is a way of getting closer and communicating with God, but not necessarily it is uttering words. You're not necessarily uttering pre-established words, right? I'm quite sure that you have already heard many times people lecture saying the relation, talking about the relationship with Mother Teresa and God, right? Very classic example is Mother Teresa. When you are talking to God in your conversation, when you're praying, what do you say? She answers, I don't say anything. I just listen. And then to make it, just to turn it around, the journalist who interviewed her and said, okay, you don't say anything when you pray, you just listen. So what does God say? What does God tell you? And she answered, he didn't say anything, he just listens. Because silence is more than any means of communication. There are moments in our lives that we have no words to capture and express reality. Silence speaks louder. There's so much emotion involved that we cannot reduce it using one word, one sentence. So the climatic prayer is one listen to the other without saying anything, because that's the real communion. It is the divine in me in communication with the absolute divine. Right? Now, can we experience the different levels of faith in our life? Yes. Perhaps when we were teenagers, we were in one level. Perhaps when we are adult, we are another level. Perhaps we are an adult, but something happened in our life, and we are in another level, but we can experience different levels of, right? If you go into YouTube as well, you're gonna see, and also if you digit, you're gonna see a letter written by Mei Mei, a spirit called Mei Mei. Okay, so. And basically, for those who are not so much familiar with Mei Mei, right? Mei Mei was a woman, Irma, and she was married to Arnaldo in Brazil. And when she was 22 years old and they got married, 1 year afterwards, she died. She was very beautiful, very good person, and she died. And her husband, some years ago, after losing lots of weight because he was completely frustrated and he was lost in his life, he was walking one day in Sao Paulo, and then he came across and almost stumbled over a person whose material that he has in hands was really spread on the floor. And this person ended up being Chico Xavier. And Chico didn't know them, but just looked at him and said, "Hi, Naldinho," which was the nickname. Let me tell you, Mei Mei is here with us. And she's reminding you that today is wedding anniversary. The guy got so much astonished that he followed him to the center. That same day, Chico, through psychography, he spoke and then he wrote the letter. And when you see the letter of Mei Mei, it's very interesting because she's so elevated and she's telling her husband that there will be torments, there will be storms, there will be lightning, there will be rough winds, there will be tragedies in his life, but he has to stand firm with the relationship with God. Even if his feet is blooding, continue walking towards the light, because this will make you see with eyes that are not physical eyes. Hear, listen with ears, or the addition that is not the physical one. It's very poetically written, right? It shows that she's saying that there are levels of faith. You're still in the cradle. You're still on your force. You have much to go, right? Very interesting. If you go there, it's very moving, very touching. Many people even cry when reads because it's really well written, really, really well written, right? Can somebody else have more faith than somebody other person? Yes. It depends on the level of illusion. Sometimes you say, why this person? She's so much at ease. She's so much comfortable. She's so much pure. The feeling was so much attached to God. And I'm struggling here and reading and going to the center and pay attention to lectures and participating in workshops. And I'm still struggling. Because we have different incarnations. Everyone is on a different level. Right? There is an author, a poet, Brazilian poet from the modernism movement in Brazil. He was very famous, Manuel Bandeira. And Manuel Bandeira wrote a very short poem in 1936 that he shows this purity and this communication with God, this intimacy developed in a human being, which is the name of the poem, gives the name to the poem, which is called Irene, lady. But at that time, until the beginning of the century, poetry was written for a very noble subject or very sophisticated subject. The language was with rhyme, very stilted language, and very elaborate. And he wrote a poem that is almost a prose. And people know that it's a poem because he's a very important poet. But if you just read it, it's not a poem at all, right? And the name of the poem was Irene in Heaven. Just for you to see this syntony, this synchrony, this tuning up of Irene in Heaven. And it goes like, I'm going to translate free translation because it's very easy to translate because there is no rhyme, right? So Irene in Heaven, he says, good Irene, black Irene, good humor Irene. I can imagine Irene walking into heaven. Excuse me, my little whitey, can I come in? And the good goody, kind-hearted St. Peter goes, come on, make it your home. And this is the poem. Mm-hmm. Just for you to see the stage of Irene. No permission to come in. Black, good-humored. He is already in sync. She was already in sync. So no permission to come in. This is your home. Make it home. And even call him my little whitey, because she was black. My little whitey. Okay? So just for you to see the levels and levels of faith here in communication, right? Is faith related to knowledge accumulation and to education, intellectual power, and memory? Not necessarily. You may be intellectually developed and not so much morally developed. When Jesus Christ, in the very first text, when he looked at the boy that was said to be lunatic because falling water, falling fire, right? According to our language, the boy was really in a very strong stage of obsession, right? So just by talking, which was not a demon, it was just ignorant, bad spirit, right? Jesus' moral authority was so great. His degree of light is so tremendous that there is no space for darkness, and the spirit goes out. That's why he says to pervert generation, oh, how much time should I be with you for you to understand that once you have a little piece of, just a little portion of faith as big as a grain of mustard, you can really move a mountain. The mountain here was the obsessor, right? In a very simple way. So not necessary. It has to do with a lot of feelings. Yes, it is here. Is there an emotion component, feeling related to it? Yes. Is it a virtue? Yes. That's the very first virtue, and it should be developing. And we have many reincarnation to do so. If we are experiencing something that is not so good today, it is an opportunity to develop it and not to postpone. Let's face it, because as I told you, we have to deposit faith in God. That comes deposit faith, right? So, and God manifests through people and circumstances. So this is a God manifestation. The other virtues you're going to see in the chapter that he's going to be associating hope and charity. Very easy to say, okay, hope, okay, because if I have faith, I believe, I hope, I'm confident something's going to happen, right? And charity, because charity is the donation of yourself. If you have faith in God, He has the control. You pass on the gear of the car to Him. You give yourself entirely to Him. And charity is donation of time, of energy, of words, of thoughts, of material things, right? So he links with the two things here. Okay? We have already answered that. And the reincarnation process is the best way that we can benefit from so that we can develop our faith. What should you still learn to have unshakable faith? What is missing here? Do you need more tragedy? Do you need more bad circumstance? Do you need more weird people to live with us so that we can understand and go beyond and really follow a path, right? Like human beings, sort of stubborn. Some people, they prefer to be in the comfort zone of a dogma or a precept. Somebody who has religious authority told me, so let's believe. But this is sort of hesitating. It's not going to be strong enough for you to go through endurance problems. A dogma is very easily broken moment of difficulty, right? And that's the question here. What are the reasons for not having a robust, continuous, and not continual? Because continual is on and off, on and off. Continuous is permanently in process. Faith. So what are the reasons here? There are many, many, many reasons, right? Perhaps lack of humbleness. For me to understand that somebody's going to be in control. Or maybe lots of past experience that generated fear, anxiety, and that prevents me to communicate, relate, and go in faith, right? There are many, many possible reasons here. Or perhaps what is happening is I've seen my limitation, I've seen my defect, and I'm rebellious to it. There is no self-acceptance. I'm very much proud, and pride prevents me from seeing it. So if you have limitation, and if you don't admit your limitation, you're not going to transcend. And the closer you get to absolute perfection, the more you are reminded that you have a limitation. So you're going to be avoiding. You prefer to be together with the other ones with limitation and pretend that you are great. Or perhaps you say, you know what? I do not deserve. I'm punished myself. And faith is going to be giving me freedom. But I still believe that I have to continue punish myself. I'm not forgiving myself for the things that I have done. Remember, we have to forgive ourselves to forgive somebody else. It's very difficult to forgive somebody else if you don't forgive yourself. You cannot experience, right? So there are many, many reasons here, right? Effects of a solid faith. That's the best way of being calm, the best way of being peaceful, because you have faith. You know that everything happens because it's allowed and permitted by God, right? You know that after any storm, there will be calmness. You know that everything is temporary, right? So this is a very good effect that we have. And if we pay attention here, I'm about to close here. God in the Bible, he does not say, I was, I have been, I will be. He does not use verb tenses. He said, his sentence is, I am that I am. This is permanent present. Linguistically, he's already telling us that there is no past and future. It is eternal. I am what I am. And if we see I am what I am written in Hebrew, this is the initial of every word. This is Javeh, Jehovah, Yahweh. That's the word God. And also that is the verb to breathe. Because God blows and gives life. Yahweh. The Yahweh. It's an autopaic word. It imitates the sound like tick-tock from the clock. It's an autopaic word in Hebrew. This Yahweh. And all the word is I am what I am in Hebrew. So he's saying that he's permanent. And that's the reason why that I've been alternating all this light to say that every day the sun goes up. It goes down. In fact, it doesn't go up and down. It's our movement because the sun is permanent there. We are just shifting somehow, right? And Jesus, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes or comes unto me, my Father, but by me. And John, I put here one because it comes from the Spanish one, sorry. In him was life, and that life was light. I told you that we're coming from shadow to light, vices to virtue, right? And that's our journey faith. Darkness always surrounds before his light. Always. If we are in dark moment this way, let's benefit because that's the way of giving the control. Because we know that darkness surrounds before light. So how can I finish that by saying thanks? Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much indeed. Becerra Menezes Spirit Center, Miami. It's a pleasure being with you guys. Thank you so much. So let's pray now. Right? We have lots of reasons to say, God, in my journey, in our journey towards light, towards continuous, robust, solid faith, give us strength, give us wisdom to understand that this temporary situation, that this temporary person, that this temporary occurrence in my life, it is really temporary, and it's made to me understand. It's gonna lead me to understand that I'm walking toward you, I'm keeping the relationship with you, I'm getting closer to you until the day that I'm able just to be together in silence, full of you. So be it.